Second straight Saturday, the Canucks get embarrassed on Hockey Night in Canada. 6-0 the final as the Oilers roll to an easy win at Rogers Arena. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. And the tank rolls on. We welcome you inside the Pacific Toyota Dealers Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. 6-0 Edmonton all over the Vancouver Canucks. As we said in the intro, second straight Saturday. There's nowhere to hide for this hockey club. Absolutely embarrassed by the Leafs. In the center of the universe, they come on home. Hockey Day in Canada and make it 7 straight regulation losses. 10 now without a victory for the Vancouver Canucks. It's Rink Wide. It's brought to you in part by Bet365. I'm Jeff, and Harman Dial has somehow drawn the short straw in this one tonight. Harm, I appreciate you hanging in there with me because, well, there isn't a whole lot to say. I mean, it's getting worse by the day, which is good for the tank, I suppose, but this is supposed to be a hockey club that this fan base can embrace, and there isn't much to like about the Vancouver Canucks these days.
Yeah, look, as one of the early adopters of Team Tank, you have to understand that there are going to be stretches that look really ugly. It's unrealistic to think that they were going to tank all the way to 32nd and that for 50 games we were going to get 3-2 competitive losses, which could be spinned as moral victories. There are always going to be stretches where you're losing 9-10 games in a row. You are going to be blown out some nights. Now, the issue just is, how do you get out of this rut where, yeah, you understand that there are going to be some nights where it looks really ugly, but it can't be every single night. And that's where at some point they're going to have to turn the other page. And in this one specifically, it was odd too, where a 6-0 blowout, yet Connor McDavid didn't even have a primary point. The only point he got was a secondary assist. This was a game
on the power play too.
Yeah, and this was a game where Kasperi Kapanen and Jack Roslovic were dunking on you.
Yeah. That Roslovic line early on served notice. In fact, the first shift they had the Canucks twisted in knots, and Jack Roslovic, who at one point was a target of the Vancouver Canucks. Oh, what might have been be costly to not address the center ice position. I seem to recall somebody saying once upon a time, and here we are as the Canucks continue to flounder dead last. They can't score. They can't defend. There is little to no pushback in this hockey club, and I think that's part of the infuriating part for this organization. As you said, people have to embrace this, but I think they also want to see if the Canucks are going to strip it down, give young guys a chance, but some of these young guys then have to make the most of this opportunity to at least do something with their opportunity and do something with this ice time that they're getting, and there's just not a lot of do something from anybody in this lineup right now. So the fact that they lost to the Oilers, not a big deal. The Oilers got shut out the other night. You knew that they would mean business. I mean, it is kind of funny when you look at the box score. No goals in the first, no goals in the third, and 6. A season high against the Canucks. Chicago scored 5. Remember, that game was scoreless after 40 minutes, and then the Blackhawks ended up running away from the Canucks back in, I think that was early November. They scored 5 in the third period that night, but this is a new season high or low, depends how you spin it, for the Vancouver Canucks. They had not given up 6 in a period, but they did. Roslovic with a pair, Kapanen with a pair, Zach Hyman on the power play, and why not? Well, we're piling on. Old friend Vasily Podkolzin gets the 6th goal of the night. McDavid had an assist at one point there, and then they took it away from him. Broken play. Puck winds up on Podkolzin's stick. His 11th of the season as he snaps it past Nikita Tolopilo, who got the surprise start earlier in the day. We learned that Kevin Lankinen battling through something, and with that, Drew Demko out for a while. They weren't going to take any chances. They weren't going to force Lankinen into play. So why not give Nikita Tolopilo an opportunity? He's had his moments here. And again, I thought in the first period, made some stops. The Oilers outshoot the Canucks 9-7. But boy, once the floodgates open in a big way. And I'm not here to dump on Tolopilo. Again, the team doesn't score a single goal for the goaltender. The scoring starts, and I think we've got the replay of Roslovic's first of 2 off the backhand. Filip Hronek defending. Roslovic able to create a little space for himself, coming in off the left wing, right-hand shot. Curtis Lazar going to the net, and in a scoreless tie, given everything that's gone against the Canucks' arm, I thought, why not? Like, I had no problem with Adam Foote and his coaching staff challenging that one. Lazar makes contact with Tolopilo, and I've kind of given up trying to figure out what is goaltender interference, what isn't. I thought the Canucks had a case. Of course, the downfall there is if they don't win, they're putting the Oilers on the power play after they've opened the scoring, and that's exactly what happened in this hockey game. But what did you think of the way that first scoring sequence unfolded?
Yeah, I think you even have to back up before it gets to the situation where Hronek is stuck defending in a spot where the Oilers have time and space to make a play. You have Verlander stepping up in the neutral zone, and this is a theme that I've been noticing not just tonight but earlier in the season as well, where their defensemen are really aggressive about stepping up and wanting to close and kill plays early. But what happens is there are a lot of those sequences where they're not able to immediately squash the play, and that's the risk you take. Is the further up the ice you're able to force a change in possession. Ideally, that's the way you want to defend. I mean, teams like Carolina like to defend in a high pressure way, but if you aren't able to immediately kill that play, you're out of position. And then to compound things further, this is where the bigger concern stems is Archie Bains also converged on that wall battle on the left side. And then that means there are two Canucks players stuck there, so that when the Oilers switch sides, that's why they had all sorts of time and space. And Filip Hronek was kind of left on an island defensively there. It starts with too much pressure on one side of the ice, a little bit too aggressive, doubling up on assignments. And then it was a weird one where I don't think Roslovic was necessarily trying to shoot on that. He moved to his backhand, looked more like a centering pass. Tolopilo probably would have wanted that one back. I didn't agree with the coaching staff's decision to challenge it. I think quite clearly in the replay, Sassone initiated the clear contact to push Lazar into it. And it was also strange because the Canucks had so much time to look at it and decide whether they wanted to review it. Like the refs gave them a ton of leash on that. So I was surprised that they ultimately challenged that one, especially given how dangerous their power play is. But let's be honest, even if they hadn't challenged that one, it wouldn't have made a difference.
No. So 1-0. I mean, that stands up as the game winner 3 minutes and 11 seconds into the second period. And then the ball got rolling. Zach Hyman gets his 17th of the season. Guy's played 29 games. You forget that he was out of the lineup for the first 6 weeks of the season. But you play with McDavid and mostly with Draisaitl as well. You're going to get your goals. But he's got 17 goals in 29 games. He got a little fortunate bounce there. His backhand right on the blue paint deflects off Tolopilo and then off Phil Hronek and kind of wandered towards the net. And there's nothing the Canucks could do about it. But again, I'm not going to sit here and cry about a bad bounce that went against the Canucks. They didn't lose because a bounce went against them. So at that point, it's 2-0. Stays that way past the middle stages of the second period. And then the bottom fell out on the Canucks. Kapanen at 11:41. Roslovic again at 14:31. 36 seconds after that, it was Kapanen. And then Podkolzin's goal at 16:34. So they get 4 goals in a span of under 5 minutes, and it goes from 2-0 to 6-0, and it's garbage time at that point. You talked about the young defenseman, though, and the Kapanen goal, his first of 2 on the night, the breakaway gets behind Tom Willander and Victor Mancini, and we saw in the first period, Savoy got behind Mancini. Again, you're going to see this. You want the young guys to play. You're going to have to live with the mistakes, and we are seeing a number of defensive breakdowns from a lot of the young guys. Yves Buum, again, had his issues later in that period as well, but I just want to go back to that 3-0 goal. Kapanen looked like a goal scorer, just his second of the season, but he got time and space behind the defense, and he didn't make any mistake.
Yeah, so preceding that play, too, Canucks were in the offensive zone. I believe it was a Brock Besser shot. Elias Pettersson had rebound opportunity. Puck hopped over his stick. A little bit unfortunate there. Canucks still had possession, and this is where mistakes from young defensemen, where for Mancini, the simple play would have been he has the puck on his backhand. He's on the left side, just shovel the puck down the wall and hope to Just make the simple play. Hope that your wingers down low are able to keep possession of the puck there. But Mancini tries to make a dynamic play down that left wall. He makes the extra move. He half loses the handle on it. He is ultimately able to poke it over to Liam Ogren. And then from there, it's a Liam Ogren turnover. But the problem for Mancini is I don't want Victor Mancini to put himself in a position where if there's a turnover, he's caught behind the net, because there's no chance that he's going to be able to recover on that kind of sequence. So while you could point to, well, Liam Ogren turned the puck over in that situation, I don't think Victor Mancini should be that deep into play in the first place. And I think with Bouillon and Verlander, they're of course in a very different category than a Victor Mancini in terms of their age, their pedigree, what they mean to this organization, big picture. I think there is a broader, like when I see Verlander and Bouillon making mistakes, I'm not too worried because they're 20 years old and I still see flashes from them, especially in the case of Yves Bouillon, where you see some of the tantalizing puck skills and what they can do. With Victor Mancini, I'm becoming a little bit worried about whether he's going to be able to turn into an impactful NHL defenseman one day, where even before tonight's game, you look at the 8 games that he'd played, Canucks had been outshot 61-33 during his 5-on-5 minutes, so just crushed in that category. And even before, the breakdown on that goal, there was a shift in the first period where he needlessly ices the puck, and then the Canucks get hemmed in for nearly a minute and a half. Roslovic has a grade A chance. That was a shift where Bouchard was also dancing around the zone. And it all started with an unforced error by Mancini on the icing. And I think at the NHL level, first of all, it's important to remember, part of the concern is he's turning 24 at the end of the season in May. Well, he's not 20 years old where he has years and years of untapped development. The clock is starting to tick on him, and I see a lack of progress compared to this time last year where, I don't think he's not yet an effective puck mover despite his, he could bull rush in a straight line, and you, especially at the AHL level, you see that impressive skating ability. But in the NHL, if you want to be a defenseman that can wheel it out, you got to have the elite edges and the small area escapability that a guy like Yves Bouillon has. Mancini, despite being fast, once he's able to pick up speed, I don't see the small area escapability. I don't see in those tight areas where a forechecker is right on your back enough of those calm, poised plays under pressure to make an outlet pass. I consistently think that his decision-making and anticipation and overall IQ isn't up to NHL caliber, and he's not really dynamic offensively at the NHL level either. So I've had concerns the last couple of games with his gap control as well. So it's been less than 10 games for Mancini at the NHL level this season, so I'm not going to push the panic button and completely write him off. But while with the other players, when they make mistakes, it doesn't really alarm me in the big picture. Mancini's recent play does alarm me in terms of what it means for his value to the organization in the long run.
I think that's all totally fair. And I think, again, as we hear Jim Rutherford in every interview, and, we got the big rebuild out of every corner last Sunday after the 5-0 loss to the Leafs. I am curious what the light of day will bring 1 week later in terms of any sort of organizational response. But as Jim Rutherford just continues to talk about getting younger, this is my issue, that just accumulating a bunch of young players doesn't make you on the track for a proper rebuild here. You've got to get it right. And you're not going to get it right with every single one, just like you're not going to get it right with every draft pick. I understand that. But this idea of just get younger and that's half the battle, I think the points that you just made there with a guy like Victor Mancini, and if he's not an elite puck mover and he's not going to be a gifted scorer, then what is it that you're going to do to carve out a career in the National Hockey League? And he is huge. I had forgotten, we talked to him this morning after the morning skate. He came off the ice. He was still on his skates. He is a giant man. I'd like to see some toughness then, because I think that's missing on the back end for the Vancouver Canucks. And maybe it's not in his DNA. I know he got in a scrap earlier this season with Brandon Duhaime in Washington. I'm not looking for him to fight, although I would like to have seen some sort of pushback from anybody wearing a Canuck uniform in this hockey game. Like, I don't want to see them just roll over and accept being embarrassed on a nightly basis, especially this is the start of this 8-game homestand that we've talked about, and it's impossible to pick out anybody that played particularly well or stood out for anything that resembles the right reason. So we've still got a lot to get to here, but I do want to encourage you, the viewers and the listeners, bring with a super chat. Again, if this is the night that you want to vent, by all means, we are here for you. We can be your Canucks therapy, if you will. Our super chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. We've already got a couple of super chats. One from Nursey is back, says tank, baby, tank. And yeah, I mean, we're getting that sentiment in the chat again. I mean, if you want the tank, then hey, this is Exhibit A for you. Another super chat from user says, what do you think about Adam Foote? I mean, that question comes up on a nightly basis. Again, right now feels like he's the perfect guy to be the tank commander. Hasn't been blessed with a strong lineup to use. I think it's fair to question some of the decisions, tactically, structurally. But at this point, I just don't see a coaching change for the sake of coaching change. If they want the bottom to continue to drop out on this hockey club, then why would you make a change of any kind at the coaching position? But we'll see. I mean, at some point, you wonder if somebody is going to be a scapegoat through all of this. And it could very well be Adam Foote, but if I was advising, I would say, hey, status quo, let it ride. And again, they have built themselves quite a nice buffer. Winnipeg picked up a point for an overtime loss, so Canucks now 7 full points behind the Winnipeg Jets, and everybody else basically pulling away from this Vancouver hockey club. Want to get to the 3 stars of this game. Clean sweep for the Oilers. That's becoming a theme here on Rink Wide. Clean sweep for their opponents. 3 stars are brought to you by Greta Bar. YVR last week, we were there with our live show of Rink Wide. Had a good time. Harm was down there. Much of the crew was there. Wasn't a hockey game or much of a game then. Wasn't much of a game here either. But again, Greta, a terrific place to view all of these games, whether it's hockey, whether it's football, playoffs. The street food menu, drink specials. They got the arcade games as well. Terrific vibe and great atmosphere. If you haven't, check it out. Greta Bar, the place to be, 50 West Cordova. Greta Bar. Let the games begin. 3 stars is selected by the Hockey Night Group. Jack Roslovic, Sperry Kapanen, and Delta's Tristan Jarry, who pitches a shutout here in his hometown. And what do you know? Those are a match for our 3 stars here as well. Roslovic, 2 goals, 4 shots. He gets the game winner. Kapanen, 2 goals on 3 shots and 31 saves for Tristan Jarry, back after missing a month. I think he played 4 games after the trade and then got hurt and got back the other night for a loss in Nashville. So this is his first win in an Edmonton uniform since the injury and since the Christmas break. And I'm sure I had to feel good doing it here in his hometown. So probably had family and friends on hand. Any issues or thoughts on the 3 stars here, Harm?
No disagreements there. It is funny. I think about those 31 saves for Tristan Jarry, and it honestly just surprises me that the Canucks were able to muster 31 shots in that game. I'm surprised that total is that high because it didn't feel like they had many true grade A opportunities. I mean, maybe there was a stretch in the middle 10 minutes of the first period where they were starting to push play in the right direction, spend some time in the offensive zone. And sure, I can recall, Drew O'Connor chance in the middle frame that Connor Garland set up that Jarry made a great stop on. And the Canucks maybe had some high slot opportunities that Jarry was able to turn aside. But this is part of the broader issue for this Canucks team. And the way that they're playing right now is clearly for Adam Foote, there's been, a significant shift as far as not wanting to replicate the really low event, grind it down hockey that we saw last season under Tocchet. And that would be fine if this club was finding a way to manufacture consistent offense. But looking at the numbers right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out of the last 5 games, they've been limited to 1 or fewer goals 4 times. Like,
No,
it's
the 3 goals in Montreal the 3 goals they scored in Montreal stand out because they got to 3. But otherwise, 1 in Columbus, 1 in Detroit, none against Toronto, none here tonight, 1 in Ottawa. So,
it's 5 of 6 now, actually.
Yeah. And 2 feels like a bonanza for this group right now. I'm amazed they got to 3. Shame on the Montreal Canadiens for letting them get to 3. And then, of course, the Habs just stepped on the gas and pulled away from them for the 6-3 victory. So, offense it's been an issue, I believe, at the end of play here tonight. Now, it may depend. Los Angeles only got 1. I think only St. Louis and Los Angeles have scored fewer goals than the Vancouver Canucks. And when you get on a stretch like this and you haven't won in forever, that's going to happen. But just going back to the young defensemen, this is such a crappy environment for them to learn on the job. Any concerns at all? I mean, there's still 34 games to go. We look at their individual development, but how are you going to develop if you're giving up 5 and you're giving up 6 on a regular basis? I am curious to see their utilization. We've talked about guys coming in and getting resets and sitting for a night, but I do have I am a little worried just about this idea of developing on the job at the National Hockey League level when you're just getting stuffed on a nightly basis as a team.
Yeah, it is a nuanced conversation. I think it helps that this isn't year 2 or 3 where the club is in this position. That's where, if it happens over a really long stretch of time where you're lacking a baseline level of competitiveness every single night, that's where I think it could really wear on players' confidence and some of their development. And it's part of the reason why I think we're at the end of the season going to need to have honest and hard conversations about how much did some of these young players grow? How does that reflect on Adam Foote? Is the defensive floor high enough, or does there need to be a change behind the bench to address some of those concerns? I fully agree with that. However, as much as I think there are systemic issues for this team, and even just philosophically, just the F3 always diving in and compounding those mistakes, which was a massive issue in the Boudreau era. I think when Taka came in, that was one of the first things he harped on, was way too many situations where forwards are just recklessly diving in, and it's leaving too many gaps between the forwards and defensemen. However, I'd also say some of this is just these young defensemen are making mistakes, and they're at the center of a lot of these breakdowns. They are part of the reason why these games are being lost 6-0. You look at the Roslovic 4-0 goal, for example. It's started with DeBrusk as an F3 kind of diving in. It was a rebound, and the Oilers were first to loose puck in their end. DeBrusk, bad read there, where he thinks that he had an opportunity to, if I just apply the pressure, I'm going to be able to extend the play in the offensive zone. He gets beat. But then from that position, it's, again, the compounding of mistakes where Emberson sends a terrific pass to the weak side to make it a mini 2-on-1 situation where Mancini's the defenseman back. And initially, Mancini's backpedaling toward the middle to deny the pass across to, I think, Roslovic is streaking toward the middle. He does a shoulder check, Mancini does, and realizes that Bouillon is just on his horse on the back check, and he rightfully thinks that, all right, Bouillon's got Roslovic, he's going to be able to take away any potential pass across, and so Mancini starts playing the puck carrier more tightly, which is the right read for Mancini. The issue is Bouillon peels off of Roslovic because he sees a guy in the high slot area, and he thinks, oh, this could be a cross-seam pass, and abandons that net front guy, which then leaves Roslovic wide open. And so, that's just a poor read. And sure, on a team that has more structure, where the vets are more committed to, I guess, some of these defensive details, yeah, you could argue if DeBrusk doesn't dive in, that initial breakdown doesn't happen. But also, that's just a bad mistake by a young defenseman who, again, in the grand scheme of things, I'm not worried at all about Bouillon right now. But even on the 5-0 goal, right? It's
he was caught there,
just caught puck watching, right? That's just an individual rookie mistake. I don't think there's a lot that a system or a different coach could teach you about that environment. So it's both. Like, I understand some of the concern there, but part of it is also these young players are in the middle of these breakdowns.
Yeah, on that 4-0 goal, I mean, that was a heck of a pass by Howard. He threads the needle through Mancini, but you're right, the breakdowns all around, leaving Roslovic wide open there just to tap it home. And then, as we said, Bud Colson rounds out the scoring. No goals to talk about in the third period, so we don't have to go there. I suppose it's a small victory of sorts, moral victory. The Canucks killed off 3 of the 4 Oiler power plays. At one point there, Edmonton was 1 for 2, and that continued this trend of 50% penalty killing for the Canucks, 10 for 20 in the new year, but then they did kill off the final 2. Of course, that's an Oiler power play that's missing its leading goal scorer in Leon Draisaitl, who's left the team for family reasons, gone back to Germany. So no Draisaitl, and you said right off the top, I mean, McDavid has a secondary assist on the power play, so no 5-on-5 points, just a single shot on goal. And he had 1 shift in the final 7 minutes because the Oilers are playing tomorrow night. They got to hustle home. They've got St. Louis. So I did think it was interesting that Edmonton had its top power play unit out at 6-0, and I wondered if that was a little message sending to the Canucks that if they thought that, you know, they were going to try to get their pound of flesh, that maybe they should think twice. Because I was surprised that, and I don't care who the Oilers put out there. This isn't me crying about the Oilers doing that. When they're playing tomorrow night and you're up 6-0, I was surprised McDavid played much in the third period at all. Oilers go 1 for 4 with a man advantage. Canucks only had the 1 power play. It came late in the hockey game, and in a shutout, shocker, they didn't score. We did the 3 stars. I want to get to the stat that stands out, and then we've got a bunch of super chats, and I will rattle those off in a sec. But you know, it was funny at the rink this morning, talking to the Edmonton media guys. Canucks played in Edmonton their second game of the season. They were outplayed badly, but they lost 3-1. Thatcher Demko was really good that night. Then the Oilers came here, and it was the back half of back-to-backs. Remember, Quinn Hughes was a surprise scratch. We all got to the rink, and Quinn Hughes wasn't going to play that night. Oh, well, no chance. And they ended up beating the Oilers in overtime. Kiefer Sherwood had himself a night. So they had split their 2 games, but they hadn't seen the Oilers since late October. And a bunch of the Oilers media guys were like, we're watching from afar, and we don't get it. Like, they played the Oilers pretty hard that night. Like, you look at some of the talent they've got on this team. Like, what in the world has gone wrong here? Well, this is what I said to them, and we're going to turn this into our stat that stands out, which is delivered by Uber Eats. And Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day apps. Game day deals on the app. Every time the Canucks play at home, you can get a buy one, get one 6-piece chicken McNuggets from McDonald's in Vancouver only on Uber Eats. From game day eats to paper plates and napkins if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip before, during, or after the game, Uber Eats is assisting every hockey fan's hockey experience all season long. Hashtag crave the stats. This is updated after tonight's game. Vancouver's 4 veteran wingers. Brock Besser, 1 goal in 23 games. Jake DeBrusk, 1 goal at 5-on-5 all season. Connor Garland, his last goal against a goalie came on November the 26th in Anaheim. And Evander Kane now has 1 goal in his last 15 hockey games. This is Besser, a 40-goal scorer. DeBrusk, the team's leading goal scorer from a year ago. Connor Garland, sort of a regular 20-goal guy. And Evander Kane, who has been a goal scorer throughout his career. Those are your 4 veteran guys, all of them on pretty solid tickets. And that, I said to my Edmonton colleagues, this is a big part. Now, of course, the center position plays heavily into all of this. But when you see it in front of you there, Harm, and we've followed this team. I mean, we do this for a living. We're there day in, day out, practices and games, and you see that in front of you. And it's still unbelievable to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Besser especially, you thought after finally getting off, like just ending that drought against Columbus, that, all right, could this be a building block? And he was as quiet as he has been for most of these last 25-ish games. I thought he was really uninvolved. I thought Pettersson was on an island tonight when it came to his wingers, and we can talk a little bit more about Liam Ogren later. I don't want to, certainly don't want to include him in this conversation because the expectations aren't nearly as high for him as it is for Brock. But yeah, just a lot of situations where I don't want to say he's floating because I think he's genuinely trying, but he's just not able to impact the game. He's not able to forecheck when puck's back. On one of the Oiler goals, he was on the sideboards and had an opportunity to kind of stuff the Oilers' ability to kind of force their as the Oilers were trying to force their way up the wall to stuff that play out. Besser wasn't able to do it. The Oilers were able to catch a break, numbers up the ice, they ended up scoring on that one. I think it might have been the Podkolzin 6-0 one. I think that's part of the concern with Besser is I think even at the best of times, we've known that he's not a play driver. We've known that he's not a natural playmaker. You're certainly not expecting him to drive entries up and down the ice. But I think when he was having his most success offensively, he was also still winning board battles and was helping out defensively. Let's not forget that for a long time, he and JT Miller were used on a night-to-night basis against the league's best players. And how many times did JT and Brock go up against Connor McDavid, and their defensive details would be on point. And it just feels like Brock's regressed, not just in terms of the lack of offensive production, but also just defensively and losing board battles and too slow to arrive on the forecheck. It's been tough to watch him play. We know about DeBrusk's struggles at 5-on-5. That's a pretty remarkable stat. And then for Connor Garland as well, I actually had in my notes jotted down how it was an uncharacteristically poor performance from him from a puck management perspective. I think Garland is one of those players that you never usually have to worry about his puck management, but just thought he was throwing the puck away a lot. He also had one of the penalties that the Oilers scored on in the second period. But when it comes to some of those turnovers, he had an exchange play high in the zone in the first period with Mancini that led to the Savoy partial breakaway, a D-zone turnover late in a shift in the second period that led to the McDavid line having a threatening sequence, and just other situations where his passes weren't quite working. Even a play in the third period where he was on the right side in the offensive zone. Bouillon was activating on the weak side. There was an opportunity for Garland to flip it across, and the pass was just way too hot to handle, which isn't what you expect from a Connor Garland. So I think he's had a really tough time lately as well.
You know, I thought he looked good in his return to the lineup in Montreal and gave his line with Besser a little bit of a boost. And then back-to-back the next night in Ottawa, I thought he struggled then. Didn't really notice him in Columbus an awful lot. And now this. And you know, I've generally one that's not going to knock his effort. It's usually, there. But I think it's been a struggle for him. I just, like, for whatever reason, and maybe it's the in and out and the injuries, and he may not be 100%, but, he's a guy, we always talk about leading them into the fight. He fought a couple of times, and again, I wasn't looking for him to drop his gloves in this hockey game, but he just kind of seems out of sorts, and then, as you said, some of his puck management decisions as well. All of this has to be weighing on all of them. I mean, it can't be fun for anybody, and but nobody's going to feel sorry for them. The Oilers certainly didn't, and the Islanders won't on Monday. And then as this homestand goes along, they've still got a bunch of star power on the way in here. I just want to do this, more for consistency than anything, but Canucks record now falls to 16-27-5 through 48 games, so 34 to go. The home record is it's abysmal. It's incredible how bad it is. 4-13-3. They've lost 7 in a row at home, because they haven't played a whole lot at home. They had the 5-game road trip before Christmas and then a 6-gamer. They haven't been around home a lot, but this is 7 straight losses since they beat Minnesota on a Saturday night over a month ago. 1 win in their last 13 on home ice, and on it goes. So 7 straight losses in regulation, 10 winless If you're one that believes that this equals the franchise's longest losing streak, I am not going to sit here and argue with you. The league breaks it into winless and outright losses. This is 7 outright losses. The franchise record is 10 straight back in the Marc Messier era. This right now is considered 7 straight losses and winless in 10. But have they come out on the short end in 10 straight games? Yeah, they have. By a lot of people's definition, that would be 10 straight losses. This segment,
by the
Rink
way,
Wide. Yes, go ahead.
I was just I hate the NHL distinction of winless versus losing streak. I just hate that. They've
These are
lost
losses.
all those games in a row.
No, I know. This segment brought to you by the Pacific Toyota dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid. It's a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. You can drive up to 72 kilometers on battery alone. That's enough to get you from downtown to the rink to the grocery store and then home to recharge. Seamlessly transitions from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. No sacrifices when it comes to horsepower or style with its sleek, low, wide exterior and a sophisticated interior loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. And right now, you can lease a 2026 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $109 weekly at 3.99% APR for 64 months with $3,300 down. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, to the Super Chats. From Caffeine Goes in Face, a $10 contribution, and we thank you for that. Is Rink Wide considering starting the post-game show after the second period now? I think it's pretty safe that the game's over by then most days. Yeah, we've had a few of those in the inbox. GoldenEyeForever.com says, oh, that's the same one. Jacob, you cut and paste.
Yeah, sorry. I pasted it beloll it if you take it.
Oh,
out.
I
Yes.
got you. Okay.
Sorry, lots of them came in at once.
I got you. Okay.
Didn't have it ready to go.
GoldenEyeForever.com says, worst management group ever. They say the Canucks, not us, or we. What's up with that? No connection, not loyal. Don't care about fan connection. GTFO. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I've detected them sort of referring to them as the Canucks as opposed to we. I mean, they are the ones that are in charge. We can certainly talk about the job that they are doing. Tim Jones says they made Tristan Jarry look like Jacques Plante today, and then he comes with the second one that says foot gave an inch or two tonight. The old Imperial joke there. It's a metric show, though. Spatzilli, in past years, we cared about establishing a winning culture down the stretch. Do you all think it matters how badly they lose along the way? Let's just pick up on that one. Do you think it matters? Ultimately, I mean, if the end goal is to secure the highest draft lottery odds possible, and they're well on their way now, do you think internally it matters whether this was a 3-0 or a 6-0 hockey game?
In the grand scheme of things, no. Now, if this were to happen every single night for the rest of the season, yeah, that'd be concerning. But let's remember, for as bad as the Canucks are right now, we've seen some historically awful teams over the last 5 years. Some of those, like San Jose Shark teams, the Blackhawks, the Ducks. I mean, you think back to even this is going way back, the Nathan McKinnon Avs in one of Jared Bednar's first years.
48 points.
48 points, right? So it's like, it's, I shouldn't say it's okay, but sometimes you're going to hit rock bottom. And we've seen teams, I just cited Colorado, but also San Jose and Chicago, that have hit a rock bottom that I think is even further below where their Canucks are at right now. And it was over a whole season. I think if it were to continue this way, of course, you would 100% have to consider some type of coaching change for next season, I think. And that would then at least allow you to have a fresh start, install, some systems tweaks, bring in somebody, whether it's Manny or somebody from the outside that you believe would be a really good fit with some of your young players. I'm not too concerned yet with is the losing so bad that it's negatively harming the young players, their development and the vibes. We've seen a lot of other franchises go far lower than this.
Willington says it's good to have Harm subbed in this evening, and we agree with that. And again, this wasn't going to swing the result in the Canucks' favor. But what do you make of the fact 2 in a row now, Nils Höglander can't crack this lineup?
Yeah, it's concerning for me. I don't agree with it. I don't think Archie Bains has shown nearly enough to warrant lineup opportunity. He's been given so many looks in small stretches of just, hey, you're drawn into the lineup, fourth line role. Let's see what you can do. And he's just hasn't ever really been able to consistently seize that opportunity. Whereas in Höglander, even if you don't think he's a long-term fit for the organization, at least put him in a position where he can get his own game back on track, build a rhythm for himself, and at least build up his trade value, right? To me, you're just killing his trade value by continually throwing him into the press box. Not to mention, yeah, it's been a rough go of it for Höglander. I still don't think he has a point yet on the season, and yeah, he hasn't been as impactful as we're used to seeing. But I also give him at least a little bit of grace considering how much time he missed at the start of the season with the injury, and then you throw in you're yo-yoed in and out of the lineup. To me, I would 10 times out of 10 rather see a struggling Nils Höglander in the lineup rather than a struggling Archie Bains, because at least with Höglander, there's a hope. There's a hope that this guy can get back on track, because even last year, right? First half of the season, he ended up in Rick Tocchet's doghouse. Things were trending in a tough direction for him. And then at least in the second half, Höglander from Jan 1 onward till the end of the season was actually one of their better wingers, was near their 5-on-5 point leaders. The two-way metrics were terrific. At least with Höglander, there's a hope that he could turn it around, and that matters considering how much you've invested in him with his current contract and just wanting to build up his asset value. Whereas to me, Archie Bains is looking more and more like one of those quad A players, where elite American League guy, but I don't think he warrants being an everyday NHL player.
By the underlying numbers, that line of Sasson, Karlsson, and Bains actually had themselves a reasonably decent night. They had a couple of shifts where they were swarming the net and the puck wouldn't go for them. But also, when we come to deployment, like 2 weeks ago, Linus Karlsson was the belle of the ball. I mean, this guy could do no wrong. And now all of a sudden he's playing on a line back with his Abbey buddies. And that part, he's got his contract, so that's not a concern for him, I suppose. And if they want to experiment and look at other guys, I mean, now's the time to do it. But it is just kind of funny how you go from playing with Linus Pettersson and people are like, it looks like Pettersson and Karlsson maybe have a little chemistry. And now Linus Karlsson's playing 10 minutes tonight with Max Sasson and Archie Bains. I know you wanted to talk about Liam Ogren. I didn't notice him an awful lot in this hockey game, and I find myself looking for him. The guy that wears 92 on the other side did score in this game. This 92, no, he had lots of company because nobody in a Canuck uniform scored, obviously. Just over 12 minutes of ice time, couple of shots for Liam Ogren. Actually, I mean, they got him down with 5 shot attempts, so maybe I'm shortchanging him. What did you see in Liam Ogren's night tonight?
Yeah, so again, this is a different conversation, I should preface this, than let's say the Mancini one, where with Mancini, I'm worried about the lack of development runway. With Ogren, first of all, because of how fast he is hounding pucks, and because his motor is always going, he's always going to have a high floor. And at minimum, he's going to be a reliable, consistent bottom 6 NHL player. I think this was a learning experience for him that, hey, got the top line opportunity to play with Linus Pettersson. There are a lot of things that he needs to learn and pick up on to be effective working with other skilled players in that role, because top guys need that. At least on one wing, it's pretty common to have a digger on the line, a guy that can get it on the forecheck, use their speed to cause havoc. But there are a lot of other details that separate the guys that can actually do it well versus the players that ultimately do just end up being bottom 6 guys. And to me, like when I look through some of my notes, the puck touches that Ogren had, especially when you're playing on a skilled line with Linus Pettersson, every puck touch matters, and it has to help your line control possession. A lot of plays that just didn't work out in the first period, and you tried to stick handle in high traffic and goes offside, which kills one possession. There was another shift in the first period where, as a second man in on the forecheck, uses his speed to get in, collects the puck, but then he loops around and takes a shot from a really bad angle. And that's one of my pet peeves when you're playing with skilled guys, is don't just throw prayers towards the net, because what happened on that sequence is, can't remember if he missed the net or if it went off Jari's pad, but the Oilers recovered the puck and then were able to generate something off the counterattack. And essentially a bad angle shot that you're not able to recover is functionally the same thing as a turnover. And you just you can't have too many of those situations. There's a 3-on-2 in the first period as well, after Elias Pettersson forced a turnover high in the defensive zone, where in tight space again, he couldn't quite make a play. In the second period, a neutral zone turnover, which led to a 2-on-1 chance for Podkolzin. I mentioned with the Roslovic goal, he turned the puck over behind the net. So just a lot of mistakes with the puck. Again, not an effort thing, but when you're playing that high up the lineup, I think Elias Pettersson was, quite honestly, between Brock Besser, again, just being completely uninvolved, and then Ogren fighting the puck a little bit, I think he was completely left on an island, which when you're matched up to go up against Connor McDavid, it's impossible to ask Elias Pettersson to drive a line all by himself against number 97.
No, fair enough. And I mean, they held their own for the first period, but just kind of felt like a matter of time. And again, at the end of the night, this wasn't the McDavid show, but in some ways that makes it that much more disappointing, I guess, from a Canucks perspective, that lower in the Oilers lineup were the guys that were able to do the damage. Let's hear from Adam Foote. I am kind of curious. Spent about 8 minutes at the podium. We won't play it all, but get some early thoughts of the Canucks head coach after a 6-0 trouncing at the hands of the Edmonton Oilers on Hockey Day in Canada.
Well, Adam, how did you see the second period playing out and ultimately where things got away from your group?
The first goal, we all saw what happened. I mean, I felt like we had to challenge that just from the kicking motion. I thought he lifted up his stick, and I didn't see it as much of a push. I thought the kick on the pad, especially from the one angle, we had a real good opportunity. And, our guys, we thought that would go our way. So had a good kill, and then, the next kill, just a slight mistake, I would say. There was a slight mistake on the next goal, but not, a young D didn't see what happened for the breakaway. That's just, unfortunately, that's going to happen sometimes when you're in this situation. I guess what we have to do is stop the bleeding in the fourth goal, where we had a veteran dive in and give them an odd man rush on 2 young D, and that's where I felt like in a moment of 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes, we really, from a young goaltender to young D to everyone was just like, what's going on? So that's where we've got to really dial it in and, keep teaching, keep talking about it, not to get into I don't know what the right word is, we're either pausing or a little bit overwhelmed. So that's what happens when got a lot of young guys in there at once, but it's not just the young guys. The older guys are going to have to, if it's going to be this way with injuries and, going with some youth, they're going to have to learn, to hang in there too and not press. It's hard on them as well, but that's the way I see it will happen today.
How heavy do you think the losses feel for the guys right now, and how big of a challenge is it to keep spirits up at the moment?
Yeah, I'm sure it feels heavy. I mean, especially one like that tonight. It's when it's 9 shots. I thought Petey's line was playing McDavid's line really well over top of them. There wasn't a lot going on in the game, and then we saw what happened, and even the 2-0, it just didn't have to happen. But the 3-0 was just that's where I think we got unraveled a little bit, because you can't give a breakaway like that. It was just a mistake that probably won't happen often, but they do happen.
Did you see enough? I mean, things go sideways; they're blowing up on you. But did you see enough fight from your guys as things were going wrong?
Well, it's hard to. Yeah, well, you know what? They kept going, but it's hard to judge that, because unless you've felt it, and I don't want to be I don't want to be that guy that says, unless you sit in some of those, like I've been there as a 10, 12, 15-year vet, and there's times where I made 3 mistakes in a game as a 15-year vet, and you just want to go home, like as a defenseman. I'm not saying that that's what they felt, but you kind of gotta, you got a young goalie in there because Demmer's hurt and Lanks is sick, and he needs a veteran D at times to help him maybe, and so it just seems like there's a lot going on at once, where there's different levels, and I got to give our veterans credit. Like they're in between periods and on the bench, they were good. They were good to the young guys, and that's we're going to get hopefully Blueger back soon. And that's like I see all these young guys can play, and it's just a lot at once. It's not all on them. It's nothing we can do about it in some of the situations, and it's something we're going to have to keep working on. And I don't think Edmonton did a lot to us. There was some big mistakes there. And that's when we had to learn not to lose our heads and stay within what we know. Giving on man rushes like that are just big mistakes, and that we've given up 3 or 4 of those that were damaging.
So he didn't want to be the guy that says you didn't play the game, but he kind of did. A little surprised there in that last answer. I mean, Patrick Johnson just point blank, was there enough sort of fight in your team? And I want to give the veterans credit in the room and on the bench. Credit for what? I don't know.
Especially when Foote, in I believe his first answer to Batch, rightfully pointed out that when you give up that 3-0 goal and you're on the verge of maybe things completely falling apart, how in that moment you need your vets to stabilize things, and how on that 4-0 goal it was DeBrusk diving in that initiated the breakdown that put the two young defensemen Mancini and Bouillon in a tough spot with an odd man scenario coming back at them.
Yeah, I mean, he broke it down the way that you had, so I think we were all on the same page there, but I don't know. I mean, it just felt like that one was lofted up on a silver platter to kind of say, yeah, we need to fight back a little bit more, and instead he was basically praising the work of his group in the locker room and on the bench. Yeah, but what about on the ice? That is where the game is played. Want to take a moment to salute Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Played his 999th career regular season game. Would have been kind of cool if a Burnaby guy had been able to get to 1,000 here in his hometown, but won't have to wait long. They turn around, they go home. They're home to St. Louis tomorrow. So Ryan Nugent-Hopkins will hit the 1,000 game mark in the National Hockey League on home ice against the Blues, which leads us to our Bet365 line of the night. And I'm looking at that game, just 3 games on the National Hockey League scoreboard on Sunday. Blues are laying in wait while the Oilers hustle home here. No Leon Draisaitl again. Oilers are inconsistent and got shut out at home by the Islanders on Thursday. Blues, meanwhile, are coming off home wins over Carolina and Tampa Bay. Joel Hofer in goal for both of those, and we'll see if he gets the start against this Edmonton outfit. There is value in the Blues as underdogs here. You can get St. Louis at plus 140 on the money line. So something to consider as you look at the Bet365 menu for National Hockey League action on Sunday. The Canucks, I assume, will practice on Sunday, and they've got plenty to practice as this homestand continues. Next up, Parm, the New York Islanders, who are coming in after a 4-2 loss in Calgary this afternoon that wasn't as close as the final score indicated. It was 4-1 late in the game. I don't know if you saw Dustin Wolf taking the shot at the empty net. Came close. I thought that one was going in, but puck kind of got on edge and rolled just wide. But the Islanders lost to Calgary, so they'll be coming off a loss themselves, but they blanked Edmonton on Thursday. David Rittich was in goal today. Means the Canucks will likely see the NHL shutout leader Ilya Sorokin on Monday night. And the Islanders, without Bo Horvat, he's not going to be in the lineup, so that's disappointing, I'm sure, for him and for Canuck fans. But without Bo Horvat, this is a team that relies on a few others. Matt Barzal is their acting leading scorer because Bo, he's been out since December the 1st, and is still the runaway leader with 21 goals on the season. They've got a few other guys that can put the puck in the net. But this should be exciting. If nothing else, a chance to see Matthew Schaefer for the first time in person in the National Hockey League. He was in on both Islander goals this afternoon. The kid has 32 points, 13 of them goals as an 18-year-old defenseman. I am looking forward to seeing Matthew Schaefer on Monday night at the Raj.
Yeah, especially because the first time the Canucks played the Islanders this season, that was maybe Schaefer's worst game of the season, or at least one of them, where that wasn't anywhere close to the best version of Schaefer that we've seen this year, which means, I mean, I'm really excited to see what he looks like. I imagine it's going to look a lot different than that first time where, got his pocket picked by Kiefer Sherwood, ended up in the back of the net. And I mean, he's just unreal. The way he moves, zone exits, zone entries, dancing at the line like he's Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes. And I love that he does it without sacrificing the defensive play. He's never cheating for offense. He also knows how to use his skating ability to close plays, long reach, long wingspan. He's a rock star for them. And then, man, for this Canucks offense that has been so lifeless lately, to have to go up against Ilya Sorokin as well, he's been lights out. Where the Islanders this season have transformed into being more of a run and gun team. They're fast, they're exciting. They give up a lot defensively, though, and this is where Sorokin, especially when you look at some of the analytics, he's been the best goalie in the NHL this year. That's going to be a significant challenge, but I do think this forward group, not just without Bo Horvat, but also no Kyle Palmieri. He's been out for a really long time. It's a little bit thin, right? You look at their projected lines, and their second line has Callum Ritchie, Shabanov, and Heineman, right? So you got Ritchie in there, who's young, promising player, but still developing. He was acquired in the Brock Nelson trade. You got Shabanov, who was a KHL signing and is really more of a depth scorer in your bottom six. And then Emil Heineman, a player that I like, but really he did his best work as a complementary winger playing with Bo Horvat. He's not somebody that you expect to drive the line offensively. So the Isles are in an interesting spot, and especially with how competitive the playoff race is in the Eastern Conference, you expect them to be desperate to be competitive, to bring some intensity, and curious to see how the Canucks match up against that.
So that's Monday night, and then as the week goes on, Ovi and the Capitals, the Devils come to town, Sid next weekend. Homestand wraps up against the Leafs 2 weeks from tonight. It's not going to get a whole lot easier for this Vancouver Hockey Club. And I mentioned practice tomorrow. One thing I'm going to be looking for is Adam Foote at the morning skate today said guys like Kiefer Sherwood and Thatcher Demko were still being evaluated, and he called it a big day. And I do wonder if we're going to get some news on any of those players, or Marco Rossi, or and certainly with Demko. I mean, there's this sort of suggestion out there that they may just shut him down at some point. And so I'm kind of curious to see if we get any more clarity on some of the injured players. Again, I'm not expecting to see Kiefer Sherwood in the lineup on Monday. Certainly Demko's not going to be in there, and Rossi's not going to be. Maybe Teddy Bluger. And at some point here, sooner rather than later, it sounds like Philip Hedl's going to give it another shot for the Vancouver Canucks. I'm fascinated to get a chance to talk to Hedl. As people probably know, injured players for the Canucks are off limits to the media, so nobody's had a chance to talk to Philip Hedl since he got trucked by Tom Wilson back in October. And I think there are a lot of questions that have to be asked about him and his future and his career. But he shed the non-contact jersey. He was out there at the morning skate, as was Bluger. And so I wonder if even Sunday is a day where maybe we're going to have access to a couple of these guys that have been out long-term. And, it's been such a forgettable year for Teddy Bluger. But I'm sure he wants to get some games in ahead of the Olympics, or he'll play for Latvia. So those are a couple of things that I'll be looking for on Sunday before the Canucks get back at it on Monday. But I think we've pretty much said all that can be said about a 6-0 loss at home to the Edmonton Oilers. The losing streak at 7 outright losses, but as Harm said earlier, they're all losses, so really it's 10 in a row for the Vancouver Canucks. Jake Lazar putting in a shift on a Saturday night, our technical producer. We appreciate that. Harm, thanks for doing this. Always fun getting you on. Appreciate your analysis. It wasn't a whole lot of material to work with, but hey, we do the best we can with what they provide, and so no sugarcoating. They got smoked on home ice by the Edmonton Oilers. But thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, there you go. Harm Dial of The Athletic. And, of course, Canucks Convo with David Quadrelli Monday to Fridays at 2 p.m. each day. All right, we'll be back to do this again. I think Tyson Cole's in with me on Monday when the Islanders are here. Irf will be back on Wednesday for that Capitals game. But that is going to do it for us here. 6-0 the final. The Oilers all over the Vancouver Canucks. Thanks for checking out this episode of Rink Wide Vancouver.